For me, it definitely starts with
we're
skill,
live.
but then it goes to if they're enjoyable to watch, if they're not douchebags and that sort of thing.
Right.
So
There's only
is
one.
douchebag on the banned word list? Because if I say
Yes.
douchebag 3 times, do we get demonetized? So yeah.
There's only one person I bother watching on Twitch, and that's because he's part of a larger other Discord community that I'm in. So it's like, all right, so fine, and there's people I talk to on there or have talked to on there. So but that's it. I literally just signed up for a Twitch account like a month ago for the first time ever.
Right.
You should come watch me sometime, dude. I'm very not entertaining.
Right, but
Good so.
no, thank you. I get enough of you. I don't need more.
What's your handle again? Plug it. Because you brought it
Lance
up.
Cutie.
Lance Cutie.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. Lance Cutie.
No wonder they called you that. Your friends call you what they call you.
Lance is taking everywhere.
Yeah. It's a pretty common name. How much of my stream did you watch, Andreas? So
well, I watched like 20, 30 minutes, and you never replied to me. Like, fuck it. Well, I went and did something else.
Was a little busy, so I honestly don't know how the streamers are like, always keeping it up. Like I had it on my second screen for a while, but it would also kind of like slow it down at times. So I was just like, yeah, forget that noise.
Well, you were streaming from your console, I assume?
No, for my laptop. So
why was you got a decent laptop? The FPS seemed really low. Maybe the stream would just set to like a rather low FPS.
Maybe it was probably on default, so that wouldn't surprise me. So,
yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So streamers make more money than we do. So,
yeah,
we are streaming right now. This counts.
Yes,
we're content creators, which is not very good at the money making part of content creation.
We're also not very good at the content part.
No, yeah.
Hey, it's a passion project. You don't have to be good at a passion project.
How many months of tier lists until somebody just shoots us and makes us stop?
Tier list is meta. Like, we're with the trends.
At least
we're with it.
At least one more, month of tier listing.
Yeah.
I had to explain to the wife this morning what a tier list was, just because she was like, "What are you guys talking about?" It's like, well, probably this. And what is that? Oh no, we're too deep. So. So anyway, we're talking about allies, but we're focused on the top 10-ish, that kind of came to mind, and we're calling them the Scoobies because that's what they were kind of called in Buffy, and that's what they're kind of called in, Scooby-Doo. So for obvious reasons, right? Who's the main character in? I guess it'd be the guy whose name is on the title, right? So Scooby-Doo, the dog.
Scooby-Doo.
So these are Mouse's allies. So
yeah.
Mouse's top 10 allies, including.
But Mouse should be. Mouse is on the list. How can he be his own ally?
He cheats.
Yeah.
The problem is
Makes
I'm looking
sense.
at because I was only half paying attention to this, and now that we've started it, I'm looking at this list, and I'm like, I'm just gonna have to listen to a bunch of S tier every time we go along.
I don't know. It's gonna be.
We should probably define how we're going to, like we did with the villains, but we did halfway through what our criteria was for this.
Yeah, we can try, because it's like, if you're doing it on power level, some fan favorites are going to get tanked, right?
Well, are we doing this on level of efficacy? Like how much of an ally are they? What is their quality? Because there's certain people in here who's just going to build it up by being in every book.
Right, right.
I think it's like
Thomas and Murphy would be like 1 and 2 regardless of.
Yeah.
Basically. And Bob would be right behind them.
Right.
If not,
we're already agreeing.
And Mouse. This is what I'm saying. These are all like, everyone's gonna be like S tier.
Okay. So EG, since you actually hate some of these people, like hate, like how would you suggest that we rate them so that you could get your hate across without just coming off like a deranged madman? How would you do that?
That's a good question. Because I was thinking about this, and I feel like, because all these people are allies by any definition we want to call them. So I don't really think we're going to have an issue like we did before with the, does this person really count as a villain? So now I guess it's a matter of, I guess we're going to have to judge it based on the quality and the quantity of their helpfulness.
A little bit of both, yeah.
but we're also going to have to weigh the negative stuff. And I don't just mean like, oh, I'm challenging Harry and therefore I get knocked down a peg. It's the actual like, how have I also hindered him, and is that ever addressed? And I'm talking about one person specifically.
Yeah, I
because
know who you're talking
even Murphy, I'm going to be able to set aside my dislike of the character to say, no, she's basically top A, low S at worst type of character, I think, without getting too much hate across, if I'm being as objective as possible.
Well, and type of character certainly could even be different, right? Like, you know, I think the quibble here you were saying on whether or not they're villains, like it would be whether or not they're Scoobies, right? Because I think that Billy and Georgia barely qualifies, and I think that the books that they show up, they certainly are, right? But they don't show up nearly as much as some of the other characters. And you could say easily the same thing about Susan. She's just so impactful to the story outside of that, you know. So
right. Well, and
you know,
Sanya, who, even though he's one of my favorites, it's like he's, you know, what, 4 books? It's not huge.
Right. So getting this out, because this was while we weren't recording, plug, just kidding. But one of the things we were discussing, and I think we even slipped it in before you joined the pre-show, EG, was that it was almost a slam dunk if they were on the Fellowship. If they went to Chichen Itza and they got a number on the Fellowship, it was almost a slam dunk that they were a Scooby, even if they didn't necessarily show up and impact other books, right? So that's part of how Sanya slipped in. But that still kind of like leaves Billy and Georgia out, right? So that's even, it's not necessarily like a hard line, but I think it's worth considering. Leah almost made the list because of it.
Sure.
You can guess who was advocating for that, but you know,
I mean, I would honestly, yes, this was pre-show before I got there. I mean, Billy and Georgia are kind of a package deal, but really Billy's the one who's the ally, and Georgia's kind of just along for the ride, even though she is helpful in her own way.
Yeah, Turncoat is different though. They're both there for sure, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah.
But yes, overall, he's the most of it. So
I mean, I wouldn't have had a problem with Leah on here because there's really, you know, but that's a different conversation.
There will be part 2.
Well, I mean, yeah, because there's going to be plenty of other like veterans.
Just wait till we get to like part 4.
Yeah,
we get Lamar and Rollins, you know, and where they fit in the list.
So yeah, I mean, Billy and Georgia are the weakest ones, but from the early books and even Turncoat, there's no reason for them not to be on here, because the only people who weren't on the Fellowship were them, Michael because he was crippled, and Butters because he wasn't, you know, a friggin' plot device yet.
Right. And Sanya's Aragorn, right? Like in the
I think
changes in the Fellowship. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if
Thomas
Sanya hadn't been there, yes, yeah. What I was getting at though is like if Michael had been there, he would have been a shoo-in for Aragorn, right? So that's why I was like, at least Sanya got it, right? So you still got the coverage there, but you know, just thinking and speculating. So do we want to start with Billy and Georgia, because they're probably going to be somewhat down on the list, not because we don't love them or anything like that, but I mean, power set, they're certainly better than, you know, Butters or Murphy at pre
what they do,
you know,
pre-power,
but
at least.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, I would if we're going to start with them, I would probably put them solidly in C tier. I mean, if we're taking impact overall and power level as a factor, then
impact, power level, how about effectiveness, let's say, and how about like actual, like, let's say loyalty and ally status to
I would put them at least up to B because of their loyalty. Like they trust him. They want to go to a fairy war, even though they really, really shouldn't. They're just they're very helpful.
That's super good points. I have a controversial take. Okay. Billy and Georgia showed up in Turncoat. I'm not sure what their confirmed kill count is, but their confirmed body count is actually +1 because of Turncoat. So they might be the worst allies. They actually added somebody post-battle. Like, how do you even do that?
And we don't know what that thing is going to turn into.
Yeah, baby werewolf. So, like, she literally had puppies. Like, that would be hilarious. But, you know. Anyway,
all right,
so
D tier. Fine, you've convinced me.
The D is for dog. Never.
No, you don't want to know.
Look, man, we talked about necrophilia. I don't think this is even going to rate. So
that was mostly you.
Oh no, it was you.
No.
You
No.
brought it up.
I didn't provide the research materials.
Irrelevant.
Right, so
There was
It was
research
done-
material.
It was done in response to questions that
remember
needed
it.
answering by other people.
Yeah. You don't remember the rubric? I was going to say tier list, but that's not quite what it was. But so we got a B, we got a C, we got a D. So
Well,
C,
no, I said C. I was just bumping them down
Yeah.
because of you.
yeah. Andreas, strong opinions.
That's a very high C or a pretty solid middle row B. They're there somewhere. I think they're quite loyal. They're not the most powerful. They're very good at the thing they can do, and they go to fucking bat for the rest. And they question him one time, I would say, and rightfully so. Also, a sign of good friends and good allies is they don't just fucking jump, skip with what you say. Like, right there.
I mean,
They gave him
Billy
a
definitely
brand new car, which then broke because Dresden was driving it.
Yeah.
Yes. Time is a river, so
I think B. I'm kind of with Alex here. I think B. The more I think about it.
Honestly, I mean, out of this list, compared to these guys,
Relative
I would
to this
say,
list, it's harder.
Yeah, I would say they almost rate, like a D tier in a way, but I definitely feel C. And then it's like when you compare to all the rest of his allies, like, do we compare him to the baby wardens or, certainly again, just the beat cops and, the dude who stitches people up a couple of books, right? Again, clearly allies, but not really anything to write home about necessarily. But I mean, I'd go C. So almost setting like a lower bounds in a way for this list anyway, I think.
Yeah.
So
I can accept that.
Yeah, I was like, are you gonna?
I think it's fair, especially considering relative to who we have to talk about today.
I was going to say,
but
if we're
I
going to
think
add
there's
more to
room
this list, there's
lower-
probably going to be movement.
For part 2. Yeah.
Everything is fluid until it isn't.
Right. Yeah, just some food for thought. I mean, we don't have to get bogged down in the future lists that we don't even have defined or anything like that. But it's worth kind of thinking about in terms of like, overall power level. These are just like the biggest 10 that came to mind. They're not even we probably had double this list easily, right? So
Well, I mean,
we just
if you were considering Leah, you could have put Toot on here. I mean, there's plenty of people to
Toot didn't even make the list.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Leah and Mab made the list, but not Toot. But yeah, like, so yeah.
Binder, I would say is an ally now.
Oof, no.
Yeah, I would.
Ah, man.
Binder's an ally in the same way Goodman Grey's an ally.
Goodman Grey's also an ally.
Goodman Grey's a better ally.
Yeah, but they're both essentially only as good as their word. Like, I know we like Goodman because he's done what he does, but if he's as true to his word as he is, if Nicodemus hired him first, he would have happily done, well, maybe not happily, but he would have done what he had to and would have been an enemy.
Mortimer as well.
Mortimer fine. I think the difference with Goodman Grey is that you very much could have seen like a she level of adherence to the contract, right? Where it's like Nicodemus contracted me to replace this dude's body, not to be muscle. So you could see him just basically like thumb his nose at Nicodemus potentially. Now, from Goodman's own words, he is a monster. He has no problem whatsoever doing evil things. We just haven't seen it on screen, so to speak, right? Other than him just being bad to bad people. So he's, for lack of a better...
Well, I mean, you also have Michael, who apparently knows his reputation enough to not like him upon knowing who he was immediately.
That's fair. I mean, if Michael doesn't like him, that speaks pretty highly.
I mean, towards the end, he was willing to invite him into the house, and obviously he didn't go for other reasons. But
right, that might complicate things. So, all right, who do we want to argue about next?
Michael,
because it's like
talking about him.
Michael.
I was gonna say, I don't think really. There's some people that's really not going to have much of a discussion. I'm telling you.
Is there a reason that Michael shouldn't be in S tier? I guess
because
he's crippled now. I mean,
power level has dropped, sure, but like if that is such a thing as an ally to Dresden, he is the truest of a friend.
He's got the power of friendship. He's got the anime power.
Yeah,
like he really does.
I mean, he's a big part of keeping Harry together, though, right? Like even if he can't run to the battlefield and that sort of thing. How many times have we had a chapter's worth of just crying, you, me, him, them, where he just goes over to Michael's house, and I mean, Michael's protecting his kid, for how many books? I don't know, man. Like I'd be willing to listen to somebody quibble, but I don't see that needle moving.
Yeah, I'd be willing to listen to someone quibble. I just don't know if anyone's going to do that.
Right.
Well, no, you can make quibbles about his character as like a person. Like, for example, when it comes to his zealotry or his inability to even comprehend that a shadow of a fallen might change and this kind of stuff. And, even Charity takes that even further with her zealotry. But that's him as the character. If we were ranking him as a character overall.
You could do that too. I think that's part of the whole of their allyship is like, are they?
Well, yeah, but this seems to skew it much more towards their character in relation to Harry versus their, it's implied in the name of, okay, so we see them as an ally. How does that function come through?
Right.
Because Michael judging a fallen shadow or wanting everything to be left up to God is who he is, but we can only judge it so far in relation to what he does with Dresden with it in this case.
And I mean, even if you wanted to call that a flaw, which I think, it's still somewhat rational from his perspective, even if it is based in, in his faith and that sort of thing.
It was based on
he's doing it to protect Harry, right? Mm-hmm. So like if you want to tie it back to how does that relate to Harry, then he's doing it from a good place in the sense that he's just trying to protect Harry further, even though we could easily say from the series it's objectively the wrong call, right? It would have been the right call for Harry in some ways, maybe the wrong call for a bunch of other reasons, but especially like if he had given up his power just to dunk Lash, that would be, first of all, the book series would be over terrible, but not necessarily even a bad ending, but not the story that we're reading, obviously, right? To use one of my own catchphrases there, but but the ramifications, like it would be like Ghost Story, but Harry's still alive, right? The Fomor moving in, kidnapping people left and right, and Harry's just like, well, shit, I guess I get a shotgun now. Is that what we do? So, but yeah,
I mean, I almost think he like Michael is almost a bar above. He's almost changes on this list in terms of an ally.
Well, I was gonna say, do we put a G tier for?
No, he's the M tier.
So, yeah. The Michael tier, yeah.
Top of S. I don't think there's much else to discuss about him, really.
Not really.
Right. So, poor Sanya. Like, he would probably be like the top of this list if it wasn't for Michael. So there can only be one winner in this race. But,
and if he was around more.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I would almost say he's not even S. He's A. Like top of A.
Yeah, I would probably put him there just as far as like how often he shows up. But he's busy,
but we're not ranking we're not really ranking him based on who Sanya is and what Sanya is doing outside of being a friend and ally to Dresden. It's kind of so I think A, top of A. If it was a character or all the good he's doing, he would be S, right? But as an ally,
yeah, it'd be okay. I mean, he also has some decent with his relationship is unique among the knights, especially because of his viewpoint, but especially you see it in Changes, the conversation he has with Dresden when he finds out that he's the knight. It's not the conversation he would have with Michael, but it's pretty on point what needs to get across at that time to Dresden. And he's the same kind of Michael attitude. It's like, listen, I'll be there for you either way, even if I got to cut your head off.
Right, which he almost does, So, director, any strong feelings?
Of A, because as much as I really love Sanya, I've had the slight slightest irritation with his inability to admit that he's working for angels or his atheism, agnosticism. It's kind of cute, but then if I think about it too much, it gets a little annoying. So
that's a character flaw, though. That doesn't reshape
same,
his allegiance and alliedness to Harry.
Interesting, but
yeah. Okay. Sanya, seriously, my dude, figure out your place in the universe.
Yeah.
Then people will like you more, apparently.
Yes.
So, I just to get an aside in here because it just popped into my head. I like the fact that his divine sense is through smell. So, I'm just, the fact
annoying.
that he smells evil as a stinky diaper or good as a pizza or something like that. Totally S tier.
So he is actually Scooby-Doo in this scenario.
Right. I mean, there's a literal dog on the list, but okay. So,
you do mouse next?
Yeah, I was like,
why? So we can say S tier and just go away again.
Yes,
let's get S tier out of the way.
Let's get him out of the way.
But is he better or worse than Michael?
He's less than Michael's. I would say
he's as loyal as a dog, but he didn't follow him into literal hell. So
only probably because he felt obligated to protect Dresden's daughter.
I mean, he didn't go into Hades because he was with Maggie.
Can I irritate everybody and let's just call it a tie so we don't have to argue about it and we'll just move on? Like, they're both divinely powered, right? He's a temple dog, so he's getting his power.
I mean, I'm happy to if we do actually want to argue who's better. I mean, as far as if we want it to not be a tie, I'm happy to put Mouse under him just because I don't know that Mouse is, he's not a human. So there's only so much of this we can attribute. Like, he's smarter than a lot of people, sure, but he's also got a lot of his like supernatural nature that sort of predilects him to being, unless warped, to being this protector person.
Right.
So it's not the same as Michael, who makes a choice every time so much as it is Mouse, who's like, well, of course, it's my job.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that we could potentially discuss, but I think at the end of the day, he's still going to wind up in the same place, like.
Well, yeah, no, and this is not like bump him down to B tier.
No. I'm just saying, like, if we want to gush over how awesome Mouse is, I'm down for that. But I don't think anything's going to argue necessarily that he's above Michael or that he's in an A tier or anything like that, because it's like he's got Dresden's back every opportunity he can. And a lot of the times that he can't is because he's protecting Maggie or he's protecting somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just, Mouse would have followed Dresden into hell. He would have done all of these things, but he was told no. He threatened to rip Leah's ass off. So, all amazing things, but he also didn't, he's not so righteous per se that he didn't get Uriel's grace. Right. So again, like if we quibble about like effectiveness and power levels and stuff, I think would be the next thing that we could get into. He's still quite up there in his domain, which is somewhat limited. I mean, he more or less chases off the ick, right? So you've got all of this stuff,
which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, Nicodemus is afraid of him.
I was going to say no. It's Anduriel who's specifically
right.
Freaked out.
Uriel calls him little brother, right? Yeah. So, like
Nicodemus doesn't like him, but Anduriel's the one spazzing out like Peter Pan's shadow on the wall.
But the ultimate difference between them here, I think, is that if you told either of them to make Harry a sandwich, then only one of them's going to bring him a sandwich.
Right. The other one's going to bring it to him in his stomach.
Yeah, right. So, I have no idea, but that's what came to mind. Let's see. Any other easy ones? I think we're down to the slightly more difficult ones. So,
I guess I still think one or two of these are going to end up being pretty easy when we get down to it.
I think Thomas is pretty easy from my point of view.
Yeah, Molly or Thomas. Sure.
And I was even going to say Bob too.
Bob, there's more nuance than that to discuss.
I think I'm going to be the problem with Bob. So, but I mean, any preference out of the three to start with?
I think Thomas is in like EC low SIA. He's very loyal, but he's got issues.
Yeah,
he's very
is
effective.
introduced.
I might
Also,
rate him
his
below Sanya,
loyalty is a
actually.
little bit contingent on the fact that he's family. I mean,
Right.
which
He will
I
always
mean,
be loyal to
it's
Dresden, but he
pretty
does have his
contingent.
hissy fits.
well, I
Like-
mean that's the thing. It's. I mean, it's a little unfair, but everybody else here is not a blood relative, so it's like they're all kind of doing it because they choose Harry, and whereas Thomas and Harry
They didn't
have
grow
this-
up together. They choose each other too.
Yeah, but
I mean,
every time
yes,
they
but
do that, he
it's-
just talks about it being blood. It's not
Right. It's a no-brainer, right? So Thomas gets sent to Bianca's party to die by his dad, and he chooses to ally himself with Dresden because Dresden's powerful and will help get him out of there, right? But then once they find out that they're brothers, like
Thomas already knew by that point.
For crying out,
Promise already
Did
knows
he?
back.
Yeah,
All right,
Thomas knew.
so-
Thomas recognized him. Oh, you're Harry Dresden. He knew.
gotcha.
So
Yeah,
he was
the-
allied as well because of that.
Right. The other flip side of that is one of the things that EG hates about him, which is in Cold Days, how he instantly flips out of his I'm an emo vampire thing because family is in trouble, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, ultimately he's still got to make the choice, but for him, family is blood is thicker than water as much as it is for Dresden, which I know is an impartial quote, but everybody gets the meaning. So but as far as like efficacy and just kind of overall and that sort of thing, I mean, he's a great ally, but I mean, I'd rate
He's
him,
also a big liability. Let's call a spade a
right,
spade.
especially right now.
Well, I mean, he was a big
Yeah.
liability in Turncoat, and then that kind of got brushed away after the fact. But now he's even more of a liability than he was before, even though, again, he's kind of been put on ice. So,
Right.
I mean, I think that bumps him out of S tier to me.
Yeah, I would rate him below Sanya personally in A tier, but I mean, like I can
know about
understand
that,
why
so.
people would want to rate him higher, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I like Sanya more. I could live with either him under or above because I can see the argument for him above Sanya. So
Sure.
I like him
either
above
one of those
Sonya.
is okay.
But if only, and maybe it's because we get more of him. But the banter
Well, it's definitely
between,
because we get more of him.
yeah, it's like the banter between Harry and Thomas. I really love that,
Sure.
and just so that's why I want to put him above Sonya. But that's because we get more of Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Andreas,
And we're not
strong
tired
opinions?
of him. I think top of a like above Sanya.
I don't know about not tired of him. I mean, I'm okay with this break we're getting from Thomas. That's fine with me.
I need more angst in my life or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. He's only selectively angsty. So,
So vampire, you're being redundant.
listen,
again.
there's plenty of vampire. Mavra's not angsty. Mavra's just cliche.
She's definitely more the cackling, mustache twirling, like yeah. Bob or Molly?
I guess do Bob if that's the one we think is going to be more contentious.
Yeah.
C or D tier? Boom, doing it.
Why?
I was
doing it.
thinking
Because
B or C.
his will is not his own. Bob is as good an ally as he needs to be because
Yeah.
he's holding his skull.
based on
It's
where they're holding it.
coercion. It's there's
Also,
no consent involved. So,
I was kind of bring up the exact same thing. Like he's as loyal as who owns him.
right. Now, and I mean that's not entirely fair because we definitely see him with Butters, right, as a foil. So he'd still help out Harry, but he's got to ask permission first, right? So maybe be at
Which is-
best
Well,
C
even
tier.
without
Freaky.
having to ask for permission, Bob decides because he knows Harry's not really turned, essentially. He decides to
Right.
wink at him and tell him, no, this is just for fun, even though Butters is very anti-Harry in that moment.
Sure.
That version of Bob, since Bob is also a different person, basically, depending on who has him, is influenced by the fact that Butters got to know Bob while Harry owned him. But to bring up, I think where we're pushing him up to B, despite this major flaw in him, when he is set down and nobody touches him in
Deadbeat.
Deadbeat, he chooses to help Harry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
nobody's
he thanked
touching
Harry
him.
then too.
Right. I think gun to his head, if he had the choice to make that was his own, he would skew towards Harry every time. The problem is, as long as there's physical contact, it's not. So, like, his overall nature is to be the ally, but his nature, his physical inabilities bring him down to. I mean, I'd be okay with B tier. That's fine with me.
B.
Yeah. I mean, the flip side of this too, right? Like, I obviously went for the controversial take first, but it's like he's in every book,
Right.
and he
Don't
helps
give a
Harry immensely. You know, even in the earlier books where Harry has precious few allies, Bob is more or less his ally, right?
I mean, they even kind of point out in Cold Days how Bob is going to be a reflection of Harry when Harry is the owner. And so Bob is saying all these hurtful, evil things to Harry. It's like, yeah, I'm just a reflection of you. How do you feel about yourself?
Mhm.
So it's like, even though he doesn't have that consent or whatever sense of self, it's still an important part of his character that is helpful in the whole story. It's strange.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So we're settling on B?
Yeah.
All right.
I think B is fine.
Yeah, I just thought it would be funny to be like, everybody loves Bob. What about Bob? Bob is not as high as you think, maybe, but maybe he should be. I don't know if he'd be S tier
I like
compared to
everybody
everybody
loves
else.
as a character. Like, if we were doing dressed in characters, like we go by enjoyment, complexity, all that. Like, Bob is like up there. He's ARS. Without thinking too hard about where I would place him, but that's not the list we're doing today.
Yep.
Right. So for me, Molly's kind of a no-brainer. Maybe you can quibble about which of the top three she's in or whatever, but she's clearly a staunch ally of his, and probably still has ulterior motives a little bit in that regard, right? But at that point, it becomes down to like efficacy and power level. So that's why I was like, yeah, she'd probably be easier and less contentious. But director wants her up on S++ with Michael. So, right?
No, I would like her young, stupid teenage time to be a drawdown on her.
Because, I was thinking that draws down a bit, I feel like.
Yeah, she is so
how dare she be 14 and be so useless to Harry? God.
Well, there's useless, but then there's the opening of White Knight when she is flaunting that she broke Harry's rules and Murphy's rules and just like being an obnoxious shithead.
Because she went invisible in a crime scene?
Yeah.
Like that stuff? Okay.
Followed him in the car, which put herself like in the backseat, which actually put herself in quite a bit of danger.
So I would just like to point out here that we were all young and probably stupid at one point. So would you want your past to be held against you in this way? Like,
sometimes they deserve to be, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
like was any of that damage long lasting enough that it should
that's
still be?
That's one. Two, not to jump too far ahead, but are we going to apply the same thing and drag Murphy down for the first two books?
Or Butters.
Right.
Or
Butters is definitely getting dragged down for his shit.
Exactly. So like if we're looking at the whole of the character and their allyship, then we have to incorporate
Thomas, right?
the bad as well.
But part and parcel with that, the other thing I would bring up is Thomas, Butters, Murphy, when they do these things, they're also all fully formed adults. Molly's very much in the growth category of, okay, stupid teenager, now here's her character arc, and here, so she grows out of that and she becomes even more of what she could have been. Whereas the others, their character flaws, their medulla oblangatas are already like, they're set.
Right.
And that, to me, personally, brings, when adults act like children, they get bumped down further than the children acting like children. Sure. That's how I see it. Because the children have the chance to grow out of it. The adults are pretty much who they're going to be.
Right. And also, speaking of growth, I mean, Molly has, like, I'm trying to weigh this comment. I don't think there is another character that's grown as much as Molly has, on screen in the story, basically. I mean, first of all, she started when she was 14 in the story, right? Or whatever her age was. She was a teen, but she is now also a winter lady, so like growth from literally being a child through her rebellious teens. Well, I mean, she was a rebellious teen then, through her rebellious adult teens, which is a lot more, through learning magic, through being the Winter Lady. Like, I mean, if anything, I think her allyship mostly becomes important, certainly from Changes on, because that's when she's given the space to make adult decisions. And Harry says, like, look, I'm not going to make this decision for you. You need to know. Some of us, maybe all of us, are not coming back from this one. And that's when Harry finally like backs off enough to let her make her own choices, type of thing. And then we get Ghost Story out as a result of it. So like that might even be another argument in itself as well. The pluses or minuses of doing Ghost Story and what her motivations were there. Power level, she's probably easily S tier when she can use it, as far as like the rest of the allies. Having Harry's back, probably S tier. Like, who's not going to immediately say yes if she was able to, right? And that's going to be the other part of it too. Like, she could move into antagonist territory a little bit if Mab told her, this is now winter law. Now you need to slam his forehead into the elevator every single time you see him, like
there's
so it could
there's
be
a lot
tricky
of complexity
there,
because like there's like she is S tier up to Cold Days, I guess, plus minus somewhere around there. But after Cold Days, she's what is she? She doesn't have free will the same way anymore at all.
She does, though. It just depends on how you ask. Because we see that in Peace Talks, Harry doesn't ask her as Lady Molly. He asks her as Molly, as Grasshopper.
She's also,
so that's why she's able to do the things.
She has more flexibility than someone like Bob, and she can try more than Bob, for example.
Right.
So even though she is beholden to her nature, she's got things she can play with if she's clever. And her predisposition is to do that because she doesn't want to go against Harry.
She's fundamentally not mortal anymore, which I think kind of poses a problem for her alliance, her, let's say, loyalty. It's it's complex. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing she is also has a unique function in that I don't think anyone else has suffered as much as a direct result of Harry's actions than she has, except maybe, like, you could maybe argue Michael, but in a lot of ways he's better off now. I think Molly's taken the brunt of Harry's choices, from Changes through Ghost Story through then becoming the lady because of him, essentially. All these dominoes are falling over because of her loyalty to him, and she still goes along for the ride.
Yeah,
I think that bumps her. I think that bumps her up.
I think it's a full picture. She's somewhere in S still.
Right. I could go like bottom of S, top of A. Just because, especially the ambiguity from her Fey nature these days, right? Because she may or may not be able to act on it. If she was fully able to choose whatever she wanted in the moment in time, she'd be up there with Michael easily, right? But because of the ambiguity, I could see the wiggle. Director's still judgmental, so let's go.
I think it speaks well for her that every time she's had that problem, though, her predisposition is to at least attempt to
work around,
be herself, quote unquote.
I do really like Molly for a lot of the series, but her early parts of it still really irritate me, and I just think that needs to knock her down a peg.
You think needs to knock her down a tier or put her lower in S?
I would say knock her down a tier.
I don't know.
So
young together and ambiguity of Faye Molly together is still not enough for me to say
everything about proven guilty. She made repeatedly the bad decisions until the end, essentially, and then she continued making bad decisions into White Knight until she felt the Skavis die, and that's when the life and death is a real problem here. And it's just like those two books irritated me with her, so therefore, I think that a tier should be dropped.
So one problem I see with this is that if we put her at the top of A tier, she's going to be right next to Thomas, and that's just a bad mix. I'm just saying. So keep your eye on those two. But
And as much as Thomas should know
I think
better,
she can handle
so
him
should
now.
Molly.
yeah, right. Yeah, more like the mantle can handle him. So
no, I think even she, like, if she had just kind of gone along and not become, she could have handled and like gotten her head right. I think by now she could handle him.
Sounds good. Is that okay? Are we okay with this? Are we
I'm okay.
equally unhappy with this at least?
I'm okay with it.
This I don't agree with it, but I can accept it. It's not a big whatever.
Right. Yeah, because if we break it out on a line, she's still third in line right now, right? So ultimately, yeah, whatever. So, but okay, who are we gonna argue about first? Is there less to argue about with Susan? Should we do her next?
I mean, there really should be. She can't be higher than C tier to me.
She's not even C. She's D.
Thank you. All right, fine. You said it. All right, good. D. Because I want to put her in F, but that's a different issue.
She has some redeeming qualities. Loaf that I want to admit it. I kind of want to put her in F too, but if I'm being a little objective about it, I think D.
I would at least put them above Billy and Georgia. As much as Billy and Georgia are there, I think
she causes so many problems.
So does plenty of other people.
Not to her. Oh, come on. She kicks off a war, and as a kid, she doesn't tell them about.
And then she ends the war.
So, yeah, she didn't die for the war.
Oh, okay. I'm sure that makes it good.
I mean, but that puts her at C, right? So starts a war, F tier. Dies to end the war, A tier. C.
No.
And that's not even talking about her individual.
End war, nullified. So not C, nothing.
So then all we have to go on is, as a
work.
kid doesn't tell them about it, back down to D. They cancel each other
She's
out.
a useful ally with superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and
she won Jim a bet. Is that worth anything?
No.
Yeah. We did get a sex scene with her. Is that worth it?
Not to me. Because one, it wasn't a real sex scene, and two, I don't care.
It wasn't a real sex scene.
Yeah. No. I'm not even. No, it's not worth addressing that comment. It's just really not. So.
Because there wasn't dead people involved.
No, I don't think that's the metric.
Yeah.
That's some people's metric. That's not my metric.
Mm.
Apparently, there's 8 levels of that metric, but that's a different conversation that we've already
had. Okay, so we got Crazy Town with D and F over there, and director, where would you put them?
Top of C.
Top of C. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ambivalent as long as she's in the C tier, I think. So does that mean we're overridden and she's the bottom of C?
Maybe.
Will that make us all unhappy?
What if we both go F? Can we get her to D then?
We should be able to get her to D.
Playing the system?
I just can't have this conversation right now. I'm not mature enough to have this conversation right now. So, well, all right. So you got to make somebody's got to make the case for her as an ally and what she actually brings to the table the whole time. Like, she starts off as a reporter and she gets a little bit of info for him in the first book, right? I think
so she's like the first 3 books, she is a solid ally. They have the disagreements in book 3.
No,
but she was
she
is
clever. In certain terms. This thing here is extremely dangerous. You cannot be near it. Copies an invitation and goes.
She goes for her career.
Right.
Because he did not.
Yeah, she completely jumps the shark in book 3. So.
That's Harry's self-loathing talking. He told her, I cannot get into it. It's dangerous shit. I really care about you. Please don't go.
A lot of Harry's problems get better when he actually tells people the truth of everything. And that doesn't happen until book 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that doesn't absolve her of her responsibility as an adult.
Part
and
of
she
trust
was prepared with everything that should drive away vampires. She had the garlic. She had the holy water.
She read Dracula and went prepared for
and
that.
it worked on Mavra.
Okay, yes, because Mavra is a black court vampire.
She went to a red court vampire party.
Yeah, right. She read the recipe for how to fuck over black court vampires and went prepared for black court vampires. Here's the rub, though: it was a red court vampire party, so it didn't.
This is where
until the end of the party, they didn't hurt her because the bigger danger was Leah.
Stump for even Murphy a little bit, even though I don't like her lack of trust issues. At least with her job, it's understandable. By grave peril, they're in a relationship enough to warrant true love, and she can't be, I'm sorry, you've seen the supernatural, you've seen enough to know it's dangerous, and two, the person who you supposedly love is asking you, please trust me, this is not for you, and you still go against that? No.
Does she make a good choice? Doesn't she, when she's coming back, they have the sexy times, and that results in Maggie and everything. In that book, isn't she ultimately playing Harry?
No.
She
went back to have a conversation of she's going to stay in South America doing this good work, and maybe he could come with her. But when he feels that he needs to stay in Chicago, it's okay, this is just the end of the relationship. They have a grown-up adult conversation that I quite appreciated.
Yeah, but doesn't she play him for getting to get a hold of the Duke? Isn't she a part of that plan?
Martin was playing, but Susan didn't know. She actually did think that she was coming back for her stuff, and then, I'll support you in this thing that's happening. Martin was the one playing him.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking she was part of that plan to assassinate Ortega, but still, again, to Harry's benefit, right? So,
and that's what the phone call at the end of Death Masks is. She says that she didn't know, but then they have to go something or other.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't go higher than C- still, but I starting to feel swayed towards D. So,
I mean, I just don't think she really brings enough to the table to bump her up.
Yeah, changes. I think is again an entirely different story, right?
Still really like when she comes back and changes, and yes, they cannot be together anymore. There's never ever going to happen again. But they still have the chemistry that matches, and so I really enjoyed how that was fun but painful at the same time for the same reasons of they still fit together. And when she's fighting with him, like against the Ick, with the Earl King and all that, like they really were good partners, and you could see it, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, that's
I think a minus.
I agree with you, and that's fair. And at best, then we have her good for one book, and a great book, and she's great in it. But does that propel her above?
Basically, his only ally in Full Moon, because Murphy was the antagonist in that one, and. Sure. Tara, whatever you can say about her, who knows?
Okay.
How much of a minus are we going to attribute to having Harry's child without telling him?
I don't know how that affects ally status. Again, character mode.
Ally to Dresden, the father, who she did not tell that she had a kid.
Yeah.
That doesn't you don't think?
I mean, I do.
Yeah.
I think it would be one thing. It would be more of a character thing if it wasn't specifically him. I think that
and it
puts it in a weird middle ground.
Yeah, it also gets into a gray area on whether or not it was his right to know, which we already got in trouble about, right? So, we've talked about it before. I think
that was years ago, and I screamed so loud that people could hear me in other rooms.
But were you right?
Did hubby come check
Are we
on
all
you?
on this? Is everybody currently on the podcast on the same page there that he has the right to know?
He does have a right to know, but I do think she had a valid point of by him knowing it put Maggie in further danger. I still think it outweighs that he should have known, but there is a validity there that the more people who knew about Maggie, the more danger she was in.
Sure, that's fair. I don't disagree with that. And like you said, I still think he had a right to know.
I'm going to put her here for now because we got 11 minutes left.
No, if you're going to put her in C tier, put her all the way at the back of it.
She can move. That's part of what I was going to say is she can obviously I'd be happy with her alone in D right now. But I think when we get to a wider scope and things like that, I think she's going to move or, we'll have to readdress it anyway. So, but I mean,
I hate her. I still hate her.
She's terrible.
Well, you're still pining over Lucio. How's that going for you?
It's completely separate from that.
Who also didn't make this list, I will point out.
Oh,
I'm glad
She's
that
not
the
a-
internet
not a
is
Scooby.
protecting me from that burn, because wow. All right, you've got 5.5 minutes to argue each of these characters. Go. So Butters is at least B tier,
well,
possibly A tier.
Deadbeat
No.
is a fantastic book.
Yeah.
And
he's a knight of the fucking cross with a lightsaber. So
Butters is,
he fought a freaking titan. He's one of the only ones that went toe to toe with her and survived.
But he probably shouldn't have. That is.
He's being protected by an angel. What do you mean he shouldn't have? Like,
Michael is being protected by an angel.
I was going to say, Sanya made it worse out than Butters did in that fight. That is still, to me,
they both
galling.
got flattened. So they both got flattened but survived.
Yeah, and Sanya's injuries were a great deal
And
worse.
maybe Butters' faith is stronger than Sanya's because he actually believes that he's working for the White God instead of whatever the fuck space alien Sanya.
Maybe he's also a secret White Court vampire and he's getting a bump from his little three-way thing that he's got going on.
I'm
maybe
okay
a lot
with
of
this
things.
crackpot theory too. Like, we'll put that right up next to time traveling Murphy. Thank you.
He is pale
What
enough.
the shit? He's a nerd. God, I'm a White Court
I would
vampire.
explain how he gets Andy. I mean,
ultimately, I think he's quite S, even though he's probably one of my favorite characters.
Right.
As an ally, I would say very like high A. I would put EG's gonna blow a gasket when I say above Sanya.
So to come at this and steal some of EG's thunder, though, right? Is the entire argument is skin game, right? Is that or what? Yeah, it's skin game mostly, right? That you have a problem with him where, despite their long-term friendship and their ally status and everything, that's where he basically doesn't listen to Harry and he thinks Harry's turned into a monster and all this other shit. So
even though Bob knows better.
The rest, if we have to limit, it's the same reason for why Murphy's going to be higher than she would be if we were talking characters to me overall, because as characters, Butters suffers more for being just like fan service plot device at this point to me. His actual allyship at this point is based mostly around skin game. I think it's so entirely around skin game. I think it's a big hit, but it is the hit.
I think also that comes from a good place. Like he wants to believe in Harry. He wants to, and he's worried about Harry, and he questions what's happening to her, and he has some like decent reasons for doing so. I think
you could maybe make that argument in the conversation they have once he then translates over into putting the listening device on him and doing all that shit. He's made up his mind in that moment that Harry's the bad guy.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think subjectively the so like objectively Butters, more or less is like his lack of trust is a bigger deal than Murphy's was in Full Moon, right?
Yes.
But I think subjectively, for some reason, I'm more willing to forgive Butters that than Murphy's transgression in Full Moon. Like every time I read Full Moon, I wince when she socks him. Like it hurts, because that's a betrayal, like to his face and all of that stuff. But
that's also more of a betrayal of her character as her job. Like she's just straight up, abusive cop at that point.
Right. No, and I can agree with that, but but Butters, like he took it so much further, right? And somehow is more easy to forgive, at least from my side anyway, and probably the community at large, and might be worth thinking about that at some point. You're certainly the only one I've ever heard that takes it as far as you do, right? Where it basically just torpedoed his character, and like I hear you and I kind of understand that objectively, but at the same time I don't feel it, right?
Well,
so
I think it torpedoed it because of everything that came after that. Like if this had just been if Skin Game had just been the only thing, but at the end of it, he sort of came to his senses, but didn't get the sword and the lightsaber and essentially become this like pseudo god character.
Right.
Because it's not just even the initial betrayal thing. It's like even after he does all that, when Murphy's hurt and he's still snapping at Dresden, like, no, we're going to do this the way I say. And it's like, well, dude, you're the reason she's like this.
Right.
So if all that had happened and it had ever even been addressed, fine. That's a character thing. I can then, we move on from there. It's that it essentially never gets addressed and he gets rewarded for it times 50.
Right.
So that's what torpedoed his character for me. This, in and of itself, it would have been fine as a general character conflict had the stuff afterward not gone the way it did.
Yeah, even the reward would have been fine if they had still had some form of an addressing conversation of actually talking about how he fucked up and how his actions led to more things being damaged. We need that reckoning to feel that it's okay, even if he still gets the lightsaber.
Yeah, it's because, I know Harry's the main character, but everybody's perfectly happy to tell him when he fucks up. And most of the time, everybody's on board with that, right?
Can Harry please tell someone else that they fucked up?
You need to be told this. And he also has the circumspection. He looks inward, the introspection, whatever. He looks inward, he's able to, and part of that benefit is we're in his head, so we see that more. But even if Butters had come at the end and said, I was this terrible royal pain, how could I ever, look you in the eye again type deal, we know Harry would have forgiven him, and but at least it would have shown some level of ability to look in the mirror and say, no, you really fucked this up. That would have, again, gone a long way.
And for me, it's not just that Butters didn't trust Harry. There are a lot of reasons why, to be scared of Harry when he comes back in Skin Game. Like, he's talking about a debt, he's talking about a fairy, he's the Winter Knight, all the things like that. But Butters didn't trust Murphy, who has been his friend since he was looking at the corpses from Bianca's party and said they're not human. And he doesn't believe her when she's talking about faith. And I feel like that's he's not listening anymore, essentially, to what's in front of him. He is making his own decision. He's not paying attention to the actual evidence of why would Murphy be trusting Dresden.
To be fair, though, I think Murphy's character, it's almost certainly a foil compared to Butters, right? Butters needs the hard evidence. He needs to see it with his own eyes, or he needs direct input, that sort of thing. Murphy, pretty much in cold days, is like, man, I really hope you're not a monster, because that's going to be bad for me, right? Murphy's faith is blind faith, in the sense that she knows it's Dresden, she trusts him, and she's going to put it all on the line, whether it's right or not, she basically throws herself into the line of fire, anything to get Dresden back. And that's, to me, it was so, it had long time been obvious that they were going to wind it up in a relationship. But if that isn't just a complete blind love type of situation, then, nothing is, but for me, I think it's specifically around the time where she saves him from the garden, right? From the Red Cap and all of his goons and whatever else. But, she straight up says, you might be, but I'm all in anyway. So.
She's had the progression of, it used to have to be right in front of her face for the first couple of books, and then it grows into whatever.
Well, I think it's more of a blind love thing. I don't think it's
blind.
It based off of their prior relationship and whatsoever. I don't think she's like, well, the real Dresden would never do this. She's just putting it all on the line and saying, man, I really hope not. So
I don't think it's blind. What Murphy is, she knows Dresden for what, 15, 16 years by that point. And whatever it is, she is choosing to be on his side, but she does it with eyes wide open. It's not blind.
Okay. I'd be interested to read the passage together and just see how we come out, but I think that's a different episode.
In Cold Days, when they were at Molly's place, when she said, "Give me back the skull because you're too dangerous to have it," and he almost hits her. Yeah, and then she does explain, yes, he's being a monster, and maybe he shouldn't have the big giant danger toy that is the skull, but she's still going to be by his side. And it makes him feel more human in that moment, because he was very veering into the mantle.
Sure. Okay. All right. So Butters, to try and put the bullet in that guy. I mean, wait, the pin in
B
that.
for bullet,
Please,
B for
final-
Butters.
Please.
Yeah. I'd go high B, A minus. I don't think he's better than Sanya, for example,
No.
but I think he's probably better than Bob overall, you know. Andreas.
I will accept a lower than Sanya.
Okay. So top of B.
Yeah.
No, a lower than Sanya.
Why A?
Or than Sanya.
No, that's what you would accept.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It
and then
averages out to the rest.
Yeah, this I won't accept.
Look, man, B for Butters.
And
Bob.
B for.
and I mean, he gets the boost of Deadbeat is a fantastic book, and he's so much fun when he is a terrified
But
mortician.
he's also and he's a terrible ally, but kind of good. You know, like
It's like he's a coward, but that's fine.
he's
cowards
gonna
are
get
cool.
Harry killed. So
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I mean, I know Deadbeat's a good book and he's good in it, but if we're talking strictly as an ally, one, a lot of it is self-preservation, but okay, fine. That's what a lot of people have in certain circumstances. But two, I mean, he's just kind of along for the ride until it's zombie dinosaur time, and then he's banging a drum, which,
Yeah,
I mean, it's
but
useful.
I mean, he
but
could have chosen to run instead of bait the drum. He was facing his fears by being a good drummer. He was useful. As much of a liability as he was in the beginning, he faced his fears. He was useful. He helped with some other things. He saved him from Cassius. Like in that book, he's fantastic.
Mhm.
He's there
Yeah,
to
it's probably his strongest book, because the rest of them, his utility is basically show up, patch Harry up, leave.
Yeah,
which is still kind of important, my dude.
Yeah.
Like
I'm not saying
you're
it's
gonna-
not helpful, but it's not the same as walking into the gates of hell.
yeah, well,
So,
lots of people on these lists didn't do that one. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that's a clear S tier level of commitment, man. So Murphy, S, easy. Done.
yeah. I like it.
she's
Go
got
ahead,
to be.
EG.
She's got to be at the bottom of it if she is.
I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
She does have Full Moon as a counter, just like Molly had her issues with a couple of books, and Murphy's a bit rough in the beginning, but then as soon as Harry starts explaining things to her, she's just there by his side.
I mean, because the real problem with Murphy is that she just doesn't listen. If she just listened, she'd be alive. So, you know.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Sure, there's-
that's right. As far again, this is a different, character to me. She's would bring her down more as an ally. There's not really much. I mean, at worst, she would be the top of A list. So even with Full Moon, which is a dent, but I think Butters is worse. So
That's it's a pretty even list that we've got, as opposed to like villains where we actually did want to put everybody in the A tier and everything. So, but
And we did
I'm
it
okay
pretty
with
much
it.
on time.
now it's because we're not getting paid for the overage that we're demanding
for the low price of $12,000, we'll record a 2-hour episode
per minute.
So, yeah. Yeah, well, and I think this one was a little bit easy because we've already heard so many of our own arguments, right, in this regard. So, we were able to look in some of those conversations a little bit, but hopefully it makes sense and it'll stand up. I can't wait till we get down to like Lamar and Rollins and see where they rate on this list. And
if we ever get to that point, then it means
We'll
one
go
of
back
us has
to
died
D&D
and we
alignments.
just have no intention of doing this seriously anymore.
wait, we're being serious this whole time? Okay.
Semi-serious.
Semi-reasonably serious.
Anybody crazy unhappy with this tier list? I mean,
We'll find out.
Cody being super
Butters
quiet.
isn't B.
I'm Butter should be lower, you're right. But
B,
Susan should still definitely be in D tier, but I mean that's really the only thing I'm willing to continue fighting over at the moment.
She might, yeah. I mean, because it'll be fun to put Leah and Mab on this list because on the one hand, like they have incredible cosmic power and they could be really great allies, but on the other hand, they are absolutely still antagonists. So.
Mab is a terrible ally.
Yeah, right.
No,
Mab
That's for she.
A great
Mab-
character that you can love, but a terrible ally.
Mab's a
she's
great
a
ally
weak
because she gives you what you need, not what you want.
Exactly. And
she's
you
the
need
least
your
evil
head
of
bounced
his
around an
three
elevator.
options. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
She also
Join
takes
us.
a lot of shit from him when she wouldn't even remotely suffer.
Where
from
will
anyone
Uriel
else.
fall on the
Matt
list?
literally saved his life
Yeah. All
against
right.
his will,
So-
but still.
Yeah, specifically
Yeah.
against
saving
his
him
So
will.
against
again, we're
Will.
going back to that superhero morality, right? So Mab saved his life, but at what costs? And was it really?
Well, because he's the starborn fulcrum. We
At the
need
cost of being a protagonist, so you better get fucking
Yeah.
better deal with it.
No,
Yeah.
she's definitely going on the list next time. We'll bigger tier people to be tiered this time.
Next theme of
should-
next is like cosmic tier or very
Cosmic
high powered
allies.
beings or something. Yeah.
Phenomenal cosmic power,
Yeah.
itty bitty morality space.
And Toot. We'll put Toot on there too.
Yeah. So Vateron,
He's gonna be cosmic tier by the end of
two.
the series.
He's really not.
Power level.
In fact, if he actually becomes a full grown she, I'm going to be kind of annoyed.
Get over it. It's happening.
It's
It
happening.
probably will. I'm still going to be annoyed.
I feel like that's a
Yeah.
pretty safe bet, but I'm the one with like the rosy outcome of like where I think Harry's going to make it. So, But-
Big of you.
I mean, it would be nice if he didn't just for a change of pace, but I tend to agree.
All right. Next time.